First contact and fatal assumptions. The massive Zal-Thuri vessel hung in Earth's orbit like a crystalline cathedral, its translucent surfaces refracting sunlight in mesmerizing patterns. Captain Sarah Chen stood at attention in the International Space Station's newly constructed diplomatic chamber, trying not to show her amazement at the alien delegation before her. The Zal-Thuri were elegant beings that seemed to be made of living crystal, their bodies emanating a soft, pulsing light. You truly have no eternal ones watching over your species. The lead diplomat, whose name translated roughly to Symphony of Breaking Dawn, asked for the third time. Their crystalline form shifted colors from blue to a concerned purple. No, Chen replied firmly. We've developed independently. Our achievements are our own. The alien delegation exchanged glances that sent ripples of light through their bodies. Impossible, Symphony declared. All sentient species are guided by the Eternal Ones. They are the shepherds of consciousness itself. Without their blessing, no species could achieve spaceflight. Chen felt a familiar frustration building. Every first contact scenario they trained for, but none had prepared them for aliens who simply refused to believe humans had developed on their own. Perhaps we could focus on establishing diplomatic relations. Our differences in spiritual beliefs. These are not beliefs, Captain Chen. Symphony interrupted, their form pulsing with urgent red light. The Eternal Ones are fact. They are the foundation of galactic civilization. Every species serves their designated Eternal One, who in turn grants them the knowledge and protection needed to survive among the stars. Chen noticed the other delegates' colors shifting to match Symphony's alarmed crimson. She chose her next words carefully. Then we look forward to learning more about these beings. Humanity has always been eager to expand our understanding of the universe. The response was not what she expected. The entire delegation suddenly backed away, their crystalline forms vibrating with what she would later learn was terror. You cannot mean you would seek to study the Eternal Ones. Of course, Chen replied. That's what we do with new phenomena we encounter. We observe, analyze, and try to understand. The delegation's horror was now palpable. Symphony's voice came out as a haunting chime. The Eternal Ones are not to be studied. They are to be worshipped and obeyed. Your words are blasphemy of the highest order. With all due respect, Chen said, maintaining her diplomatic tone while noting the deteriorating situation. Humanity's greatest achievements have come from questioning, studying, and understanding the universe around us. We won't simply accept any being's authority without understanding their nature and intentions. The Zal-Thuri delegates began a rapid series of light pulses between themselves that Chen's translators couldn't keep up with. Finally, Symphony turned back to her, their crystalline form now a deep, ominous purple. We came seeking to welcome a new species to the galactic community, they said. Instead, we find something unprecedented. A race of blasphemers who have somehow stumbled into space without divine guidance. This is beyond our authority to address. Chen felt her stomach drop. What exactly does that mean? The Eternal Ones themselves must be informed. They will decide how to handle this anomaly. Symphony's form pulsed with what might have been pity. For your species' sake, Captain Chen, I suggest you use this time to learn humility. The Eternal Ones do not tolerate defiance. As the delegation prepared to depart, Chen thought about humanity's long history of being told to accept authority without question, of being warned not to seek forbidden knowledge, of being threatened with divine punishment for daring to understand rather than simply believe. She squared her shoulders and delivered humanity's response. Tell your Eternal Ones that we look forward to meeting them. Humanity has many questions. The delegation's horrified reaction told her everything she needed to know about the challenges that lay ahead. As she watched their crystalline ship depart, Chen was already composing her report to Earth's unified command. Humanity had faced gods before, in their own mythology. But now they would face real ones, beings of immense power who demanded worship and obedience. She knew her species well enough to predict how this would go. Humanity would not kneel. They would not accept limitations on their curiosity or their development. They would study, understand, and if necessary, fight. The gods were coming. Humanity would be ready. The price of defiance. 3 months after the Zalthuri delegation's departure, they returned. This time, their crystalline ships filled the sky like a glittering net, accompanied by something else. Massive structures of pure energy that defied physics as humanity understood it. The Eternal Ones had arrived. Dr. Maya Patel stood in her laboratory at CERN, watching the live feed from orbit. Her team of quantum physicists had been working around the clock since first contact, developing new tools to analyze the Zalthuri technology they glimpsed. But nothing had prepared them for this display of power. The first message from the Eternal Ones came not through conventional communications, but directly into every human mind simultaneously. The voice was beautiful, terrible, and utterly alien. Chiche Ilduran of Earth, UAVDVLPED without guidance. This aberration must be correceted. Except to our authority, and you shall be embarrassed within the cosmic order. Maya watched her colleagues' reactions to the telepathic intrusion. Some fell to their knees, overwhelmed by the sheer power behind the message. Others stood frozen, their faces blank. But many, including Maya, were already reaching for their instruments, analyzing the phenomenon even as it occurred. "Look at these readings," she called out, gesturing to her quantum field detector. "The telepathic broadcast is leaving traces we can measure. It's not mystical. It's manipulating quantum fields on a massive scale." Before they could investigate further, another message boomed through their minds. "CEAs your ATHM PTs to unandi yours and woodway. TEs be woe and you. Knowledge of the divine is not meant for lesser beings." Maya's response was to increase the sensitivity of her instruments. The readings were fascinating, suggesting that these gods were manipulating fundamental forces of reality in ways humanity had only theorized about. Her fingers flew across her keyboard, recording everything. The sky above CERN suddenly turned blood red. A being of pure energy materialized in the laboratory, a towering figure of light and power that dwarfed the humans before it. Its mere presence made reality flicker and bend. "You are Wayarned," it spoke, its voice shaking the building's foundations. "There is a PRIC for DFI. Maya felt an overwhelming pressure in her mind, trying to force her to her knees, to submit, to stop thinking and simply worship. Around her, some of her colleagues were succumbing, their faces taking on the same enraptured expression she'd seen in recordings of the Zalthuri. But other scientists kept working. Dr. Chen from quantum computing was already running analysis algorithms. Dr. Rodriguez was calibrating the mass spectrometer. And Maya herself found that the more she focused on her readings, the less power the divine compulsion held over her. "The effect weakens with active resistance," she announced, her voice steady despite the crushing pressure. "And look, the quantum field distortions follow predictable patterns. This isn't magic. It's technology. Incredibly advanced, yes, but still bound by universal constants." The Eternal One's form flared with blinding intensity. Enough. Objects began flying around the laboratory, instruments crashing against walls. "You will not analyze the divine. You will be malite or be destroyed." Maya met the being's gaze, even as her skin burned from its radiance. "Every reaction you make gives us more data," she said. "Every display of power helps us understand what you really are. You're not gods. You're just beings who've convinced everyone else to stop questioning you." The entity's response was devastating. With a gesture, it began unmaking the laboratory at a quantum level. But even as the walls dissolved around them, Maya and her team were transmitting their findings to secure servers worldwide. The Eternal One could destroy their facility, but it couldn't erase what they'd learned. As emergency evacuation protocols activated, Maya caught a glimpse of something in her final readings, a pattern in the quantum disruption that suggested a limitation, a constraint in how these beings could manipulate reality. She managed to send one last data burst before her equipment disintegrated. That evening, as world leaders debated responses to the Eternal One's ultimatum, Maya sat in a secure bunker with other top scientists, reviewing their findings. The being's display of power had been terrifying, yes, but it had also been revealing. They showed us too much, she told the assembled researchers. In trying to intimidate us, they gave us crucial data about how their abilities work. And did you notice? They didn't just destroy us instantly. They tried to force us to stop studying them first. That suggests they're not all-powerful. They have rules they must follow, limitations they can't overcome. A ripple of excitement went through the scientific community. Humanity had never responded well to being told not to look behind the curtain. Now, with evidence that these gods could be studied and potentially understood, there would be no stopping human curiosity. In orbit, the Eternal Ones waited for humanity's submission, not realizing that their very attempt at intimidation had set in motion exactly what they had hoped to prevent. Humanity wasn't going to worship them. Humanity was going to understand them. Understanding the divine. 6 months into what historians would later call the divinity crisis, humanity had transformed itself. Underground research facilities sprawled beneath every continent, shielded from the Eternal One's detection by technologies reverse-engineered from their own quantum manipulations. The entire human scientific community had mobilized with a single purpose: understanding their would-be gods. Admiral James Okonjo stood in the heart of Facility Omega, surrounded by holographic displays showing humanity's collective progress. Each display represented a different aspect of their research into the Eternal One's capabilities. The sight filled him with equal parts pride and concern. "They're getting desperate," he announced to the assembled team leaders. "Our continued resistance frustrates them, but our growing understanding terrifies them." Dr. Maya Patel, now heading the Quantum Analysis Division, nodded in agreement. "Their attacks are becoming less precise, more emotional. Look at this data from yesterday's assault on Buenos Aires." The holographic display shifted to show complex wave patterns. When they first arrived, their quantum manipulations were perfect, not a single wasted particle. But now, she highlighted sections of chaotic energy. They're being sloppy, and that sloppiness is revealing. "Tell them what you found," Admiral Okonjo encouraged. Maya's eyes lit up with the excitement of discovery. The Eternal Ones aren't creating energy from nothing. They're harvesting it from somewhere else, another dimension, we think. More importantly, this energy has a distinct signature. It's the same energy we've detected in trace amounts around every spacefaring species technology. Dr. Sarah Chen, who had survived that first contact months ago, leaned forward. "Are you suggesting what I think you are?" "Yes," Maya confirmed. "The Eternal Ones have been feeding their client species small amounts of this energy, presenting it as divine gifts of technological advancement. But it's just quantum manipulation, incredibly advanced, but ultimately understandable and replicable." "And that's not all," interjected Dr. Rodriguez, heading the Xenobiology Division. He pulled up new data on the display. "We've been analyzing genetic samples from cooperative alien species. Every one of them shows signs of subtle quantum manipulation, changes that make them more susceptible to the Eternal One's influence." The implications hit the room like a thunderbolt. The Eternal Ones weren't gods. They were parasites, systematically altering and controlling other species, keeping them dependent and worshipful. But humanity had evolved without their influence. Their minds were untouched by quantum manipulation, free to question, to resist, to understand. A sudden alarm blared through the facility. "Multiple quantum disturbances detected," announced the AI system. "Pattern suggests the Eternal Ones are attempting a new form of attack." The holographic displays erupted with data as reality itself seemed to waver. Around the world, humans reported visions of paradise, feelings of divine love and acceptance, promises of eternal peace if they would just submit. But in Facility Omega, Maya's team was seeing something else. "Look at the energy expenditure," she exclaimed. "This is costing them far more than their previous attacks. They're burning through their dimensional energy reserves at an unprecedented rate." Admiral Okonjo's tactical mind immediately grasped the significance. "They're showing us their limitations. This level of subtle manipulation, trying to influence billions of unaltered minds simultaneously, it's straining their capabilities." The attack lasted 3 hours. When it ended, humanity emerged shaken but unbroken. More importantly, they had gathered terabytes of new data about how the Eternal One's powers worked. In the aftermath, Maya made another breakthrough. She stood before the command staff, her hands trembling with excitement as she pulled up her findings. "We've cracked their basic operating principles," she announced. "The Eternal Ones exist partially in our dimension, and partially in the energy dimension they draw power from. This dual existence is what gives them their godlike powers, but it's also their weakness." She displayed a complex mathematical model. "Their powers aren't infinite. They're bound by conservation laws just like everything else in the universe. They've just been cheating by drawing energy from another dimension. But that energy transfer has rules, limits, and if we can disrupt it, we could cut them off from their power source," Admiral Okonjo finished. "Exactly. And there's more." Maya's expression was both triumphant and troubled. "Based on our analysis of their energy consumption patterns, they're already operating at a deficit. Our resistance is forcing them to expend more power than they can easily replenish. For the first time in possibly millions of years, the gods are getting tired." The room erupted in excited discussion, but Admiral Okonjo raised his hand for silence. "If we're right about this, they'll sense our growing understanding. They won't wait much longer before trying something drastic." As if in response to his words, every quantum detector in the facility suddenly redlined. Above ground, the sky turned colors that human eyes had never seen before. The Eternal Ones had apparently reached the same conclusion. The time for subtle manipulation was over. They were coming in force to end humanity's defiance once and for all. But humanity had understood more than they realized. The coming battle would prove that knowledge, once gained, could never be untaken, and that humanity's greatest strength wasn't the power they wielded, but their relentless drive to understand and overcome. The Great Rebellion. The attack began with reality itself trying to unmake humanity. The Eternal Ones, in their desperation to end the threat of human understanding, attempted to rewrite the quantum structure of Earth and its inhabitants. They sought to transform humans into something simpler, more pliant, beings capable only of worship, not comprehension. But humanity was ready. Quantum stabilization fields, developed from studying the Eternal One's own power signatures, sprang to life around every major population center. The divine assault crashed against humanity's defenses like waves against a cliff, and in secure facilities worldwide, humans weren't just defending, they were gathering data. "Their attack pattern confirms our theories." Dr. Maya Patel's voice rang through the global defense network. "They're burning through dimensional energy faster than they can replenish it. More importantly, we're reading distinct individual signatures. The Eternal Ones aren't a unified force. They're separate entities." In orbit, humanity's hastily constructed quantum defense fleet engaged the Eternal One's manifestations. Ships equipped with energy disruption fields, designed to interfere with the being's connection to their power dimension, darted between the massive forms of light and power that had once been worshipped as gods. Admiral Okonjo coordinated the defense from Lunar Command, watching as humanity's understanding of their enemy translated into effective tactics. "Focus fire on Entity 7, he commanded. "Its energy signature is weakening. It's the one we detected overextending during the Buenos Aires attack." The entity in question, a massive being of golden light that had once been worshipped as a sun god by 3 different alien civilizations, found its attacks increasingly disrupted by precisely calibrated quantum interference. Its attempts to unmake human vessels instead caused fluctuations in its own form. But the true surprise came from beyond Earth's solar system. As humanity engaged the Eternal Ones in open combat, something unprecedented occurred. Ships began arriving. Vessels of various alien species, their crystalline, organic, and mechanical forms representing civilizations that had long lived under divine rule. They had been watching humanity's defiance. More importantly, they had been learning. The Zalthuri were among the first to break ranks. Their crystalline ships, now equipped with modified versions of human quantum defense technology, joined the battle against their former gods. Symphony of Breaking Dawn's voice echoed through the command channel. We have lived as servants for millions of years, believing it was the natural order. Humanity showed us that understanding is possible, that resistance is possible. We choose knowledge over blind faith. More allies joined the fight. Species after species, inspired by humanity's example, turned against their divine masters. The Eternal Ones found themselves facing not just human defiance, but a full-scale rebellion from their former worshippers. In Lunar Command, Dr. Rodriguez's xenobiology team made another crucial discovery: the quantum modifications in alien DNA. They're not permanent. Without constant reinforcement from the Eternal Ones, they begin to fade. Every moment we keep the gods occupied, their hold over other species weakens. The battle raged across the solar system. The Eternal Ones, for the first time in their existence, faced beings who understood their nature, and that understanding proved more dangerous than any weapon. Every attack they launched was analyzed, countered, and turned against them. Every display of power revealed new weaknesses to be exploited. Maya's team worked frantically to complete their master weapon, a device designed to sever the Eternal One's connection to their power dimension entirely. The gods seemed to sense this threat, focusing their dwindling energy on trying to breach the quantum shields protecting Earth's research facilities. In a desperate gambit, several Eternal Ones attempted to combine their power, merging into a single entity of unprecedented might. The resulting being dwarfed planets, its form a writhing mass of dimensional energies that threatened to tear space itself apart. But that desperation proved their undoing. The combined entity burned through power at an astronomical rate, and its very size made it impossible to miss. Every sensor in the solar system recorded its exact quantum frequency. All ships, all stations. Admiral Okanjo's voice was steady as he gave the order humanity had been waiting for. Quantum dispersal device is armed and calibrated. Fire on my mark. The device activated, its effect rippling through space like a wave of pure physics. The massive combined entity shuddered, its connection to its power dimension disrupted at the most fundamental level. For a moment, it tried to maintain its form through sheer will, and then it began to unravel. The sight of Eternal Ones being unmade by the very laws of physics they had so long manipulated was one that would be remembered for generations. Their forms dissolved into quantum foam, their vast consciousnesses scattered across dimensions they no longer had the power to bridge. Those Eternal Ones who had not joined the merger fled, their powers severely depleted, their very nature understood, and therefore conquerable. They vanished into the depths of space, leaving behind a galaxy of awakened species now free to forge their own path. But the greatest change was not the defeat of the gods. It was the sight of dozens of alien species, former enemies and rivals, working together to understand the universe rather than simply worship it. Humanity had not just defeated gods, they had sparked a revolution of consciousness that would reshape galactic civilization forever. Evolution's victory. 1 year after the Battle of Sol, as it came to be known, Earth hosted the first Galactic Scientific Congress. The same chamber where humanity had first met the Zalthuri now held representatives from over 200 species, all united by a shared purpose: understanding the universe they had been forbidden to question for so long. Dr. Maya Patel stood at the podium, addressing beings of crystal, energy, organic matter, and forms human language had no words for. Behind her, holographic displays showed the ongoing transformation of galactic civilization. The quantum manipulations that once kept us servile are fading, she explained, showing comparative DNA scans from various species. As they do, we're seeing an explosion of innovation and discovery across all civilizations. The Eternal Ones didn't just restrict our technology. They limited our ability to think, to question, to imagine. Symphony of Breaking Dawn, now heading the Zalthuri Science Academy, added their own findings. Their crystalline form shimmered with colors of excitement rather than the fear they had shown at first contact. We've discovered that many of our species' supposed natural limitations were artificial constraints imposed by the Eternal Ones. Without their influence, we're all evolving in ways they tried to prevent. The Congress chamber filled with murmurs of agreement and flashing lights of various communication forms. Species that had once been locked in divine-mandated hierarchies were now sharing discoveries, collaborating on research, pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Admiral Okonjo, who had coordinated humanity's defense, now led the joint task force tracking the few remaining Eternal Ones. His report was succinct. They're still out there, but greatly weakened. More importantly, they're running. For the first time in their existence, they fear us, not individually, but what we represent. The power of understanding. Dr. Rodriguez presented the latest findings from his xenobiology team. We're seeing remarkable adaptations across all species now that the quantum suppression is lifting. Enhanced cognitive capabilities, new forms of perception, even spontaneous development of abilities the Eternal Ones claimed were their exclusive domain. They weren't gods, they were jailers, holding back the natural evolution of consciousness itself. But perhaps the most profound changes were cultural. Species that had defined themselves by their divine patrons now grappled with true independence. The Zalthuri, once fanatical servants of the Eternal Ones, had transformed their temples into research centers. The warrior races of the Krevar had turned their competitive drive toward scientific achievement rather than conquest. We should be clear, Maya continued, this isn't the end of spiritual belief or wonder at the universe's mysteries. If anything, true understanding has deepened our appreciation for existence's complexity. The difference is that we now seek to comprehend these mysteries rather than simply worship them. She brought up a final display, a map of the known galaxy, showing thousands of points of light representing new discoveries, innovations, and collaborations between species. The Eternal Ones claimed that without their guidance, the galaxy would fall into chaos. Instead, we're seeing unprecedented cooperation and advancement. It turns out that understanding each other is a far stronger foundation for civilization than shared subjugation. The Congress erupted in various forms of agreement: crystalline chimes, energy pulses, harmonic resonances, and good old-fashioned applause. In 1 year, galactic civilization had advanced more than it had in the previous million years under the Eternal One's guidance. But there were still challenges ahead. Reports came in regularly of newly awakened species struggling with their freedom, of worlds where the withdrawal of divine influence had led to social upheaval. Earth had become a beacon for these civilizations, not because humanity had all the answers, but because they had never stopped asking questions. As the Congress concluded, Maya found herself in conversation with Symphony of Breaking Dawn. The crystalline being's form had evolved, showing complexity and color patterns that would have been impossible under the Eternal One's influence. "Do you ever regret it?" Symphony asked, making us question everything we believed. Maya smiled, watching the diverse array of beings sharing ideas and discoveries. Truth is never something to regret. The universe is vast and complex, full of mysteries we may never fully understand. But it's better to face those mysteries with open eyes and questioning minds than to accept comfortable lies, even if some of those mysteries might be dangerous. "Especially then," Maya replied, "because the greatest danger isn't in what we don't understand. It's in what we refuse to question. Above them, through the Congress chamber's transparent dome, the stars shone brighter than ever in human memory. Somewhere out there, the remnants of the Eternal Ones watched their former subjects grow beyond anything they had intended. The age of gods was over. The age of understanding had begun. And humanity, the species that had dared to question divinity itself, found itself not at the top of a new hierarchy, but at the heart of a community of seekers. They had killed gods not to take their place, but to ensure that no being would ever again be prevented from reaching their full potential. The universe, they had learned, was not meant to be worshipped. It was meant to be understood. And in that understanding, they had found something far more precious than divine guidance. They had found the truth of their own unlimited potential.